there's a reason why we're drawn to that character development, and it's often the stories that bring about finding that which is within that you have had all along. Kind of what you're talking about in your story, eggs, where we're able to access something that we didn't think we could access before, until a situation of terror forces us to do this. And this is why I was telling you beforehand that these lockdowns, I'm very conflicted about these lockdowns over the past few years. And I told you before we done this interview that they've been the worst and the best times of my life. I was talking with my wife about it yesterday, and I'm very conflicted. It's the worst thing I've ever experienced in terms of this dystopian Orwellian nightmare that we appear to be going into. And yet I have only become a better version of myself. Friedrich Nietzsche said this. He said, become who you are. And for the longest bloody time, EJ, I had no idea what that meant. It said that quote sat with me for years without me knowing why it sat with me. And then it's almost as if I woke up and I came to the conclusion, at least for me, that the person who I am becoming is not a static thing. Who I am is not static, which is why there's the verb there, become. I don't know if that's a verb. I hope it's a verb, or I might have screwed up in that sense. So you're becoming who you are in a process of discovery. You are not a constant entity. And so when a person, at least the way that I look at it, when a person says, that's just the way that I am, it shows more of a limiting mindset, what psychologists call a fixed mindset, instead of what psychologists like Carroll Dweck, who did most of the research on this, call a growth mindset. And yeah, just to dovetail back into, I don't know if dovetail's the right word, I don't know, more like spearhead back into the conversation that you'd mentioned. Going into a person's process, for example, like R.L. Stein, who does things completely different to what Stephen King does, or even what C.S. Lewis did in his books, for example, in his book, Screwtape Letters, if you've ever read that.
I've read that, yeah.
Oh God, man, that's a deathly confronting book if you let it be. Everyone's got their own process, and everyone does the best that they can do with that process. And I always go back to it. In this time, we've got to understand that everyone is doing the best that they think they can with what they have. Unless you're psychopathic or narcissistic or sociopathic, which is really interesting because we can throw labels at people without really knowing why those labels exist. But oftentimes people, just the ordinary person's doing the best they can with what they have.
Yeah. I remember, I think it was Brene Brown said that. Is that her name? Is that how you pronounce her name?
I know Brene Brown, yeah. But
I remember her. Yeah, I remember her asking the question, do you think everybody is doing the best that they can? And my initial thought was, no, I don't. I don't think everybody's doing the best that they can. But then after listening to her, I mean, everyone has a different capacity. Everyone has a different threshold for stress. Some people, are just hanging on. Other people are thriving in lockdown. I know I'm exactly the same as you. I feel like it's been the worst 2 years, and in some other ways, the best 2 years. And it's very strange because you think, would I wish it away? Yes and no. But there's just been so much broken, and I sort of think, I imagine a tree being like a rose bush being completely stripped back, which I saw some people do. They bought a house in a street near me, and the first thing they do was cut the rose bush back almost to the little stumps. And I thought, oh no, all those rose bushes have just been destroyed, but they left the tiniest little stub at the end, and now being spring again, you should see these trees because the roots have gone deeper, and that's why the trees are stronger. But watching them cut them back just looked horrible, and it just looked so stark for so long. But before you know it, it's spring again, and that's the hope that I've got for after lockdown. It's a little bit scary because I feel like it's just dragging on. I just never imagined it would drag into 2022. But, you know, wars have gone for 5 or 6 years at a time, and you come out the other side. Like, I just think going to sit in a cafe with a cup of tea and scrambled eggs with some friends, to me, that's sunshine. That's just like the most amazing thing, but I would probably take that for granted before.
Yes.
So I think a bit of simplicity, you know, not needing as much, being grateful for the people in your life. Yeah, it throws you right back, and you can be happier with less. But in order to get there, it's been a horrible process, but maybe worth it. I don't really want to answer that because there's been people who wouldn't have the same feeling, especially some of the comments on some of the clips I did with Matt. You know, we talked about this, and 50% say, yep, it's the best 2 years, and other people said, I'm in depression, I've lost everything. So yeah, it's a hard thing to gauge. I don't really know how to answer it.
It really is. And that's why there's a theologian by the name of Tim Mackey, and he's based in the States, and he talks, I love the way that he put together his answers. Whenever he's asked questions, he says, I don't have answers, but I do have responses. And he hesitates to use the word answer because answer is so final. It's almost like this is what it is. Just like the earth is flat was the answer to how the earth constituted itself until I think it was Aristotle who was the first to measure the curvature of the earth by, I think what he did, he put two different measures on two different distances, and then measured I want to say the light as it hit one compared to the other, and you would be able to see the curvature of it. I could have got that completely wrong, but what we have as people, and especially as a counselor, and I say this myself, I have responses to many things, but whether I have the answer is a little bit more difficult. Like, we know the answer to the way blood plays its tricks within our bodies, that it circulates. You know, blood circulates is an answer to how the cardiovascular system operates, in essence. Yet there are many responses that we can kind of come up with, which would sit on many different sides of the question, I would say. And that's why it's a bit more nuanced, a bit more difficult to come up with something.
Well, I don't think we can sort of be blamed for that. I don't think we've been through anything like this before, especially our generation. We've just been a lucky country, and we've never had to fight for freedom. It's always just been there. So I'm hoping, I'm optimistic that it will make us better, and moving forward. It's just that we happen to be in it right now. We're writing that horrible chapter that no one wants to write, but we have to play our part in it. We're in it, so you have to embrace it. I don't know what else there is to do, really, because and that's the sort of strength that you start getting that you didn't know was in you, which is going to be something you can't get any other way. It's not like you can just imagine that you would be strong in a situation. Once you put through it, you know that you are, and that hopefully will carry on in life with you forever and make you a better person.